The night Igioma was born, Orangey Village did not sleep. It wasn't the screams of labor from Alero's hut that kept them awake, it was the sky itself. Thunder roared without rain, and winds tore through banana leaves as if searching for something lost. In the village's outskirts, where the poorest of the poor lived, Alero lay on a tattered mat, sweat pouring from her brow. Only Mama Inesi, the aging midwife, was with her. Alero's cries echoed, but they were quickly swallowed by the howling wind. "Push, child, push," Mama Inesi urged, voice trembling not from exertion but from a strange chill in the air. Then a silence, the kind that made trees stop rustling and insects go mute. And he was born. The baby lay still, his body warm, yet he did not cry. His skin shone, not in the moist way newborns do, but as though he carried the night sky inside him. Most striking of all were his eyes, silver, glinting like polished stone. "He's not crying," Mama Inesi said, horrified. But the boy opened his eyes, looked straight at her, and smiled. By dawn, the wind had stilled. But the peace was false. Rumors sparked like dry grass fire. "Witchcraft," someone cried after seeing the baby. "No, he's a blessing," others insisted. "The gods have returned through him." But more troubling was this. Alero would not name the father. When pressed, she simply said, "I don't know." In a place like Orangey, where lineage was everything, such a child was dangerous. Elder Koja, the oldest among the council, called for a gathering. "No child is born without a man. This girl lies, or worse, she has called something unnatural into our midst." "But what if it's a prophecy?" whispered Mama Inesi. "The one they spoke of the child born during a sky fire?" "Silence," Koja roared. "Do not tempt madness." The child, now named Igioma, became a subject of debate, prayer, and fear. Weeks passed. Igioma grew quickly. At just 3 months, he held his head upright, eyes always alert. His silence unsettled the villagers. "He watches like he's already lived 1,000 lives," one farmer said. Goats knelt near him. Birds lingered on roofs when he passed. And once, when he was laid beside a dying palm tree, the tree shed its withered leaves and grew new ones within days. Some called him the river's child. Others called him the god thief. But everyone agreed on one thing. He was not ordinary. Alero, barely more than a child herself, became fiercely protective. She stayed away from the village square, carried Igioma on her back wrapped in an old cloth, and answered no more questions, until the day 3 men from the Oga tribe arrived. They wore bright red beads and carried bows without arrows. "We've come to see the boy," their leaders said. Chief Obanumo stood before them. "He is not your concern." But the Oga man grinned. "Oh, he is. He has our blood. He has the mark." They pointed to the streak of white in Igioma's hair. And so the tribal storm began. Alero's warning was not taken lightly, yet it was not fully believed either. The elders were torn between preserving peace and appeasing the outsiders who came like vultures circling a carcass. For the first time in generations, Orangey saw warriors sharpening their spears, not to defend against wild beasts or raiders, but for what might be a war over a child, one who had not yet learned to speak, yet carried the weight of nations in his tiny frame. And in all of it, Igioma remained calm. On the third night after the red mist incident, the sky flickered with unnatural light. Not lightning, but a steady blue glow that radiated above Alero's hut. Villagers rushed to see what it was. They found Igioma sitting alone in the yard, his mother asleep inside. Undisturbed by the commotion, he stared up at the stars, the blue glow dancing around his head like a halo. Chickens had gathered around him in a circle, not clucking or moving, just still. Silent. A small child stepped forward. "Igioma," she whispered. He turned to look at her and smiled. Suddenly, the blue light disappeared. The chickens scattered. The air smelled of roasted yam. The child who'd spoken ran back to her mother. "He talked to me," she whispered. "In my head." This was the first of many such accounts. Over the following days, strange things became more common. A well that had run dry for months filled overnight after a Lara washed Igioma's feet near it. An old woman paralyzed from the waist down felt her legs tingle after Igioma stared into her eyes for several minutes. She walked unaided the next day. Young men who had planned to leave the village stayed behind, claiming they had dreams of building something great with Igioma at its center. He never uttered a word aloud. But people heard him in their thoughts, in their dreams. Chief Obanumo summoned the elders for what he declared would be the final council. Too many tribes want this boy, he said. If we do nothing, blood will be spilled on our soil. Elder Koja nodded. He must be given to one of them. But how do we choose? Another asked. What if we choose wrong? Oba turned to Alero. Then let the mother choose. Speak, Alero. Choose the tribe. And in this. Alero looked down at her child. Igioma was drawing circles in the dirt with his finger. No, she said quietly. I will not choose. Koja stood. Then we will. No, Alero said again, louder this time. Then, for the first time since his birth, Igioma spoke. One word. Enough. His voice was not loud, but it rang through the air like a bell in a canyon. Birds took flight. The leaves rustled without wind. The elders froze. Alero stepped back, eyes wide. Igioma stood and walked toward the council fire. Alone, he looked at each elder in turn. I came where I was needed, not where I was claimed. Koja trembled. This is not natural. No, Igioma replied. It is beyond natural. Obanumo, voice shaking, asked, Then who are you? Igioma looked up at the stars. I am what your world forgot, what your tribes divided. I am the child of unity, the child of storm and soil. No one spoke. And then he added, almost sadly, but you see only power. You do not see purpose. He walked back to his mother and placed his tiny hand in hers. The blue light returned, encircling them both. Warm, gentle. Igioma turned one last time to the council. If you fight for me, you will lose your future. But if you let me grow, I will return to save it. And with that, the light vanished, and he slept in Alero's arms. The following day, the elders dissolved the council. Obanumo sent messages to all the visiting tribes. The boy is not to be claimed. He is not one of us. He is all of us. Some were angered. Some threatened war. But others, those with seers and wise men, understood. Igioma would be left to grow, but not in the village. Oba called Alero privately. You must go, he said. Not because we do not want you, but because the world does. He must be hidden until he is ready. Alero agreed, her eyes filled with tears. Where will we go? Mama Inesi, who had said little for days, spoke then. There is a place deep in the mountains. The monks of the Rainfire Temple. They will keep him. They will teach him. And so, before the next full moon, Alero and Igioma left Orangey. Many wept as they watched them disappear into the misty hills. Even those who once feared the boy now felt a hole where he had been. But none knew what would come next. They only knew this. The storm was not over. It had only just begun. 10 years passed. In the heart of the eastern mountains, where waterfalls carved songs into stone and clouds danced between peaks, the Rainfire Temple stood hidden, older than any tribe, older than any kingdom. Here, where time seemed to breathe instead of pass. Igioma grew. No longer the silent infant of Orangey, he had become a boy of quiet strength. His eyes still shimmered silver in moonlight, and that single streak of white hair had stretched longer, now touching his shoulder. But most striking was the peace that surrounded him. Birds often followed him. Trees bent slightly as he passed. Sick animals recovered at his touch. And though he rarely spoke, when he did, even the river below paused to listen. The monks of Rainfire, keepers of ancient truths, never questioned who he was. They only taught. They trained him in silence, in listening, in inner strength. He learned to speak the language of the wind, to understand the tremors in the ground, to feel the shift in human hearts. His mother, Alero, grew older with grace. She wore simple robes and tended to herb gardens. Yet her presence in the temple was sacred. The monks called her the vessel, and deep within herself, she held one fear: what happens when the world comes for him again? Far below the mountains, the world had not forgotten. The day Igioma left Orange, something had awakened. Not just in the hearts of men, but in the land itself. The tribal boundaries began to shift. Old alliances dissolved. New ones formed out of desperation and superstition. The Ogu, once content with trade and tradition, began expanding aggressively, claiming their right to protect the child of the mark. The bakery doubled their spiritual rituals, with warriors fasting for weeks, waiting for a sign of the guardian's return. And the Yanza, hidden in the hills, declared that the child had been stolen by earth demons, and began searching for him to purify him. 3 years after Igioma's departure, the Red War began. It started as a border dispute between Bakery and Yanza. But soon, Orange was caught in the middle. Farms burned. Rivers turned red with blood. Innocent children went missing, taken by those who believed they might be the boy reborn. Villages prayed, but peace remained distant. A legend spread through the land: when the silver-eyed child returns, unity shall bloom from ash. And so, everyone searched. Back at Rainfire Temple, the monks felt the shift point one morning. As Igioma meditated beneath the sky tree, Master Saiku approached him. "The earth is no longer calm," he said. Igioma opened his eyes. "I know." Saiku studied him. "You have grown strong. But strength is not enough. You must now decide. Will you hide or rise?" Igioma stood. His voice was steady. "The world cries. I hear it in the wind. The time is close." That night, he dreamed of fire, villages consumed, a girl weeping in chains, a throne made of bones, and above it all, himself, standing alone, both feared and worshipped. He woke sweating. His palms glowed faintly. Alero found him outside, barefoot in the cold. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked. Igioma nodded. "They will come soon." Alero's lips trembled. "Promise me something." He turned to her. "When they try to control you, when they try to make you king or killer, promise me you'll stay you." He reached out and touched her cheek. "I promise, Mama." The storm arrived one moon later. A band of Ogo warriors, guided by a traitorous monk who had left years before, climbed the cliffs by night. They came silently, but the temple knew. The sky tree's branches groaned. The river stopped flowing. Birds disappeared. Igioma waited near the entrance, calm as moonlight. The first arrow never left its bow. A gust of wind, unnatural and sharp, snapped the string before the archer could release. The second warrior charged, spear in hand, only for the stone beneath his feet to crumble, swallowing him whole. The rest hesitated. Then they saw him, just a boy, maybe 12, unarmed, barefoot. "Do not come closer," Igioma said. But they did, and the mountain roared. Boulders tumbled. Fire erupted from cracks in the earth, forming a ring around the temple. But Igioma did not run. He raised his hand, and the fire split in two, opening a path back down the mountain. "Leave," he said, his voice not angry, just final. The Ogu fled, but their report would shake the tribes. He is no longer a child. Days later, a messenger from Orange arrived, breathless, bruised. He fell to his knees before Alero. "Chief Oba is dying," he said. He asked for the boy. "He says the village needs him." Alero turned to her son, but Igioma had already begun packing. "I must go." Alero trembled. "You may never return." He nodded. "I know." She pulled him close, burying her face in his shoulder. "Then let the wind guide you," she whispered, "and the truth protect you." Master Saiku gave him a staff carved from the sky tree and placed a necklace of mountain glass around his neck. "You are not just born of difference," he said. You were born for change. Go and let the world feel it. As Igioma descended the mountain for the first time in a decade, the earth felt different. He was no longer hidden. He was walking into prophecy, into chaos, into destiny. And though he was still just a boy, the sky seemed to clear wherever he stepped. Some would see him as a savior, others a threat. But one thing was certain, they would never see him coming. The sun was setting when Igioma reached the outskirts of Orangey. It looked smaller than he remembered, huts leaning with age, fields eaten by weeds, and people hollow with weariness. War had stolen not just lives, but hope. A child spotted him first. He whispered to his mother, who gasped at the silver gleam in Igioma's eyes. Within minutes, the village gathered silently along the dusty road. Old men dropped their canes in disbelief. Women fell to their knees. Children watched in awe. He was no longer rumored. He was real, alive, returning, unchanged, and yet transformed. When he reached the village square, the oracle stood waiting. Her once black eyes were now clouded with time, but her voice was strong. The mark of the mountain, she murmured. The child has become the storm. Igioma bowed respectfully. I came for Chief Oba. The oracle nodded and stepped aside. Chief Oba lay beneath a thatched roof, his once massive frame reduced to skin and bones. His breath rattled with each inhale. His eyes, once sharp like a lion's, now flickered like dying embers. When Igioma entered, the old man stirred. Is it you? He rasped. Yes, grandfather, Igioma replied, kneeling beside him. Oba smiled weakly. I knew you'd return, before the end. I'm here now. The old chief coughed. They fight over you, child. Every tribe. They believe you are the bridge between gods and men. I am only myself. Oba reached for his hand. They won't see it that way. They will crown you, or crucify you. Igioma held his gaze. What do you see in me? Oba's voice softened. I see the last chance this land has to breathe as one. He squeezed Igioma's hand. Unite them, even if it breaks you. Those were his last words. By morning, the chief was gone, and Igioma's destiny had begun. The funeral pyre burned for 7 days. All the tribes sent messengers. Some came in peace, others as spies. A few came with daggers hidden in sleeves. They watched the boy who did not cry. They watched how he stood, tall and unmoved, as the flames consumed his bloodline. When the fire died, the council of elders convened. They summoned Igioma to speak. He stood before them in a simple robe, his staff beside him, the necklace of mountain glass glowing faintly on his chest. You all came, he said, scanning the circle, because you fear what I may become. The Yanza elder, gray-bearded and proud, stood. You are not born of our women, yet your powers speak of ancient things. We must understand you, or destroy you. The Yoga Chiefess rose next. We do not seek destruction, only guidance. We believe the gods placed you here to lead. The bakery warlord scoffed. And if he refuses? What then? Do we chain him to a throne? A silence fell. All eyes turned to Igioma. I am not your god, he said calmly. I am not your slave. He stepped into the center of the council circle, but I carry what you all have lost. I carry balance. He raised his hand, and the flames from the funeral torch froze mid-air, suspended like stars. Gasps broke out. Peace is not built by power, Igioma continued, but by truth. And the truth is, you are all broken by fear. He dropped the torch. The flames resumed, harmlessly licking the ground. Choose. Follow the fear that divides, or follow the child who has no tribe. The council argued long into the night. The next morning, war banners were raised anyway. The Yanza, suspicious and proud, believed he was an Ogu weapon. The Ogu, emboldened, declared him their rightful prophet. The bakery, torn by internal dissent, split in two. And so the great burning war began. But this war was different. It wasn't fought with spears and arrows alone. It was fought with ideas. Rumors spread faster than blood. Stories of Igioma walking into battlefields and halting swords with his breath, of children cured with his gaze, of men seeing visions after hearing him speak. Soon, thousands followed him, not by force, but by faith. They camped near Orangey. They called him the Flame Child, the Storm Son, the heir of sky and earth. But still, Igioma refused the throne. I was not born to rule, he told them. I was born to remind you how to live. Then came the night of betrayal. A Yanza priestess, fearing Igioma's growing influence, slipped into his tent with poisoned incense. She burned it slowly. Whispers of death filled the air.